The massive council chamber stretched out like a small city. 12 different alien species sat in their designated areas, each section designed for their unique needs. The Vorthak sat in their heating pods, their snake-like bodies coiled around, warm metal chairs. The crystalline Zephyrians hung from the ceiling in their singing clusters, making soft musical sounds that meant they were thinking. The gas-based Nebulon floated in their transparent containers, swirling in patterns that showed their mood. At the smallest table, almost hidden in the corner, sat 3 humans. They looked tiny compared to the massive Drutak representatives or the towering hegemony delegates. The human section had simple metal chairs and a basic communication device. Everything about their area screamed that they were the least important members of this council. Lee Dae-ho adjusted his plain black suit and looked at the data tablet in his hands. As the human ambassador, he had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now. Every time, it was the same story. The other species would discuss important matters while treating humans like children who were barely worth listening to. The current speaker was Vorthak Prime Minister Salek. His forked tongue flicked out as he spoke, his words coming out in a hissing voice that the translators turned into standard galactic language. The mining rights for the Kepler 442 system must be distributed fairly among the advanced civilizations, Salek said. His yellow eyes swept across the chamber, passing over the human section without even pausing. We cannot allow primitive species to waste such valuable resources. Several other representatives nodded their various heads, tentacles, and other body parts in agreement. The Drutak representative, a massive creature that looked like a walking mountain of gray rock, spoke up next. The Drutak Collective agrees. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Some species lack the technology to properly extract rare elements. It would be inefficient to give them access to strategic resources. Lee Dae-ho raised his hand slowly. The gesture was so small that it took several minutes before the council moderator noticed him. The moderator was a floating energy being from the Flux Confederation, appearing as a ball of shifting blue light. The human representative requests to speak, the moderator announced in a bored tone. A few soft laughs echoed through the chamber. The Zephyrians' musical tones became sharper, which meant they found something amusing. Salek's tongue flicked out again in what his species did instead of smiling. Lee Dae-ho stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, and next to these alien giants, he looked like a child asking for permission to speak at an adult meeting. Honored council members, he began, his voice calm and respectful. Humanity would like to present our latest technological achievements. We believe they demonstrate our growing capabilities. Oh, this should be entertaining, muttered the Vorthak representative in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. More. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Lee Dae-ho touched his tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the human section. It showed technical diagrams and data charts. We have made significant improvements to our fusion drive systems. Our new engines can achieve 0.3 light speed, which is a 40% improvement from our previous designs. The Drutak representative made a sound like grinding rocks, which was their version of laughter. Humans are proud of reaching 30% light speed. Our cargo ships travel faster than that. We have also developed new terraforming techniques, Lee Dae-ho continued, ignoring the interruption. Our atmospheric processors can now convert a dead world to breathable conditions in just 50 years instead of 100. 50 years? Salek's voice dripped with fake amazement. How remarkably slow. The Vorthak can terraform a world in 10 years using our bioconversion technology. More data appeared in the hologram. Our medical research has led to breakthroughs in cellular regeneration. We can now extend human lifespan by 30% and cure most genetic diseases. The Zephyrian cluster made a sound like wind chimes in a storm, which meant they were trying not to laugh too hard. One of them spoke, their voice like a beautiful song, even when they were being cruel. How adorable. Humans are excited about living slightly longer. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian consciousness can transfer between crystal bodies for true immortality. Lee Dae-ho nodded politely at each dismissive comment. His expression never changed. He looked like a patient teacher dealing with rude students, except he was the one being treated like a student. "We have also expanded our colonial efforts," he said, showing a star map. "Humanity now has successful settlements on 47 worlds across 12 star systems. 47 whole worlds." The Flux moderator's energy form pulsed with amusement. "The Flux Confederation maintains colonies on over 10,000 worlds. Perhaps humans should focus on managing the few planets they have instead of spreading themselves so thin." The hegemony representative, a tall, insect-like creature with multiple arms, clicked his mandibles together. The hegemony suggests that humans concentrate on simple resource extraction. Leave complex civilization building to species that have been doing it for millennia. Lee Dae-ho touched his tablet again, and the hologram switched to show population and economic data. "Our colonies are showing remarkable growth rates. Population increase averages 15% per year, and our colonial economies are becoming self-sufficient within their first decade." "Growing fast like bacteria," Solek hissed. "Quantity does not equal quality. The Vorthak prefer to build fewer, better colonies that will last for thousands of years." The council session continued for another hour. Every time Lee Dae-ho presented human achievements, the other species had bigger numbers and better technology to counter with. Their fusion drives were primitive compared to quantum engines. Their terraforming was crude compared to reality warping techniques. Their medical advances were basic compared to species that had conquered death itself. When the time came to vote on resource allocation, the results were predictable. Humanity was granted access to 3 star systems for expansion, while species like the Vorthak and Drutak received dozens each. The reasoning was always the same. Humans were too young and inexperienced to handle more responsibility. "The Council recognizes humanity's efforts," the Flux moderator announced, "but galactic stability requires that resource distribution match technological capability. Humans may expand to the designated systems only." Lee Dae-ho stood and bowed slightly to the assembly. "Humanity accepts the Council's wisdom and thanks you for this opportunity." As the session ended and the various species began filing out of the chamber, Lee Dae-ho gathered his materials slowly. Park So-min, the head of Human Colonial Affairs, leaned over to whisper in his ear. "That went exactly as expected," she said, quietly. Lee Dae-ho nodded. His fingers moved casually to a small device hidden in his sleeve. It looked like a simple communication badge, the kind diplomats used for basic translation. But when he pressed a specific sequence of buttons, it sent a coded signal across human space. The message was short and simple. "Protocol 7 is now active." Within hours, that signal would reach every human colony, every human ship, and every human settlement scattered across the galaxy. People who had been waiting patiently for 3 years would finally begin moving. As Lee Dae-ho walked out of the council chamber, he allowed himself a small smile. The other species thought they knew everything about human technology and human capabilities. They had no idea how wrong they were. And in a few months, they would start to understand just how badly they had underestimated the quiet species from Earth. The galaxy was about to change, and the Galactic Council would never see it coming. 3 months had passed since the council meeting, and something strange was happening across the galaxy. At first, nobody noticed. The changes were small and quiet, like leaves falling from a tree one by one. Choi Min-ho stood in the cargo bay of the human trading ship Busan Express, watching as the last containers were loaded onto Vorthak transport vessels. The snake-like aliens moved efficiently, their heat-sensing organs checking each container for proper temperature control. "That is the last shipment of rare earth elements we can provide," Choi told the Vorthak trade officer. "Our mining operations are being reorganized." The Vorthak officer, whose name roughly translated to Cold Fang, flicked his tongue dismissively. "Typical human inefficiency. The Vorthak Collective will find more reliable suppliers." Choi nodded politely and watched the aliens finish loading. He did not mention that this was the last human trade ship that would visit Vorthak space, ever. His orders were clear: complete all existing contracts, but make no new ones. Tell everyone that human businesses were restructuring. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Human merchants were politely ending business relationships. Human researchers were packing up their equipment and returning to human space. Human diplomats were taking extended leaves for health reasons. On the Drutak homeworld, Yoon Ji-hee supervised the evacuation of the human science station. The Drutak had allowed humans to study their crystal formations, thinking human science was too primitive to learn anything important. They were wrong, but they would not discover that for months. "Dr. Kim, make sure all the deep core samples are secured," Yoon called out to one of her team members. "We cannot leave any research materials behind." The Drutak liaison, a walking mountain of gray stone named Boulder That Thinks, watched the humans pack with mild interest. "Why do humans leave so suddenly? The research contract has 2 more years." "Budget cuts," Yoon explained with a sad smile. "Our government is reducing science spending. You understand how politics work." Boulder That Thinks made a grinding sound that meant agreement. All species had budget problems. It seemed reasonable that the primitive humans would cut science funding first. He did not know that the humans had discovered something amazing in those crystal formations, something that would revolutionize energy production, and they were taking that knowledge with them. The pattern repeated everywhere humans had established a presence. On Zephyrian worlds, human musicians and cultural researchers suddenly received urgent family matters that required them to return home. On Flux territory, human energy specialists found their contracts suddenly canceled by corporate restructuring. Nam Hyun-soo commanded a small fleet of human ships moving through the Outer Rim territories. His job was to collect the deep, space research teams that most aliens did not even know existed. These teams had been studying stellar phenomena and mapping hyperspace routes for years, always staying far enough away that other species never bothered to check on them. "Status report," Nam said to his communications officer as they approached. "Research Station Echo 7. All personnel are ready for pickup," Lieutenant Song replied. "They have been monitoring unusual gravitational waves in this sector. The data could be very valuable." Nam nodded. The aliens thought humans were too new to space travel to have discovered anything important. They were wrong again. Human scientists had been working in these remote areas for years, making discoveries that other species had missed. When humans disappeared, they would take all that knowledge with them. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council headquarters, some officials were starting to notice the changes. The Flux Confederation's trade minister, a swirling ball of energy named Current of Wisdom, was reviewing shipping reports when something caught his attention. "These numbers are strange," Current of Wisdom said to his assistant, another energy being called Spark of Analysis. "Human cargo ships are down 30% from last quarter." "Perhaps they are having economic troubles," Spark of Analysis suggested. "Young species often struggle with resource management." Current of Wisdom pulsed thoughtfully. "Yes, that must be it. Still, some of our trade routes depend on human transport ships. We should monitor this situation." But monitoring was difficult when humans gave such reasonable explanations for everything. Ship maintenance schedules, crew rotation requirements, corporate reorganization, budget constraints, fleet upgrades. Every excuse sounded perfectly normal for a young civilization trying to modernize. The Drutak Minister of Commerce, stone that counts, was having similar concerns. Human mining operations had become surprisingly important to several Drutak industrial projects. When those operations started winding down, it created small but noticeable supply shortages. The humans claim they are upgrading their mining equipment. Stone That Counts reported to the Drutak High Council. "They say new operations will be more efficient. How long will these upgrades take?" Asked Granite That Rules, the Drutak leader. "They estimate 6 months to 2 years, depending on the complexity of each site." The Drutak Council made sounds like rock slides, which meant they were annoyed but not worried. 2 years was nothing to a species that thought in geological time. They could wait for the humans to get their act together. What they did not know was that human mining operations were not being upgraded. They were being completely relocated to star systems that no other species knew about. Entire mining platforms were being disassembled and moved through hyperspace routes that humans had discovered but never shared. On the human colony world of New Incheon, Park So-min coordinated the largest evacuation in human history. The planet looked normal from orbit. Cities still had lights, farms still grew crops, spaceports still had ships coming and going, but the population was steadily decreasing. "Phase 3 is complete," her assistant, Major Lee Jin-woo, reported. "All non-essential personnel have been relocated to the backup colonies." "What about the infrastructure?" Park asked. "We are leaving everything that other species expect to see. Power plants, communication networks, basic manufacturing, all automated. Systems are running normally. From the outside, everything looks fine," Park nodded. The plan was to leave each colony looking lived in and functional, even as the human population quietly disappeared. Automated systems would maintain the illusion of normal activity for months, maybe years. By the time other species realized what had happened, humans would be long gone. The most difficult part was maintaining normal communication with alien governments. Human diplomats had to keep answering routine messages and attending boring meetings, all while their entire civilization was secretly packing up and leaving. Lee Dae-ho still attended council sessions, still gave polite speeches about human progress, still accepted whatever scraps the council offered. But now his reports mentioned increasing problems with colonial administration, communication delays with distant settlements, and budget pressures that might require consolidating human presence in the galaxy. "Everything is proceeding perfectly," he reported to Park during one of their encrypted conversations. "They suspect nothing. The Vorthak actually seem pleased that we are having difficulties." "How much longer do you think we can maintain the illusion?" Park asked. 6 more months, maybe 8. After that, the absence will become too obvious to hide." As they spoke, another human colony was going dark. Not destroyed or abandoned, just empty. The lights still worked, The computers still ran, but the people were gone. And with them went decades of accumulated knowledge about alien civilizations, trade routes, and technologies that the aliens had carelessly shared with their primitive junior partners. The galaxy was about to discover that underestimating humans had been a very expensive mistake. 6 months had passed since the human exodus began, and the galaxy was starting to feel empty in ways that nobody had expected. The changes crept up slowly, like a disease that spreads without symptoms, until suddenly everything is wrong. Oh Seung-jin sat alone in the human embassy office, packing the last of the diplomatic files into sealed containers. As the final human representative to the Galactic Council, his job was to maintain the illusion for as long as possible. Outside his window, the Great Council Station continued its daily routine, but cracks were starting to show in the galactic civilization that everyone thought was so strong. The first major failure happened on Kepler 442, the mining world that the Council had denied to humans just 6 months earlier. The Vorthak had taken control of the system, confident that their advanced bioconversion technology could extract rare elements more efficiently than anyone else. But their mining operations kept breaking down in ways that made no sense. Prime. Minister Salek slithered into the emergency meeting, his usually calm demeanor replaced by visible agitation. His scales had turned a darker shade of green, which meant he was stressed. "The hyperspace navigation systems are failing," he announced to the other council members. "Our ships keep getting lost between star systems. The mathematical calculations that used to work perfectly are somehow wrong now." The Drutak representative, Stone That Counts, made a grinding sound of confusion. "The Drutak Collective is experiencing similar problems. Our industrial automation systems have developed errors that our engineers cannot fix. Production is down 40% across our core worlds." What they did not know was that human mathematicians had been quietly solving their navigation problems for years. Human engineers had been maintaining their industrial systems through seemingly simple consulting contracts. When the humans disappeared, they took with them the solutions to problems that the aliens did not even know they had. The crystalline Zephyrians were facing their own crisis. Their beautiful singing cities, architectural marvels that hung in perfect harmony from crystal formations, were developing structural problems. Resonance patterns that had remained stable for centuries were suddenly shifting in dangerous ways. "We do not understand what has changed," reported Wind Through Crystal, their primary representative. Her musical voice carried notes of fear that made the other council members uncomfortable. "Our city of Harmony Falls collapsed yesterday. 3 million Zephyrians had to evacuate." The Flux Confederation's energy beings were swirling in agitated patterns. Their representative, Current of Wisdom, pulsed with urgent flashes of light as he spoke. "Our power distribution networks are experiencing cascade failures. Systems that have worked perfectly for millennia are suddenly unstable. We are having to shut down entire sectors to prevent catastrophic energy releases." One by one, each species reported similar problems. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were becoming unreliable. Communication networks were developing strange delays and errors. Scientific research projects were stalling as mathematical models stopped producing accurate results. The hegemony's insect-like representative, Mandible of Victory, clicked his multiple arms in frustration. "Our military fleet coordination systems are malfunctioning. Ships that should move in perfect formation are colliding with each other. Our defense grid has gaps that we cannot locate or fix." Oh Sung-jin listened to these reports with careful attention, occasionally taking notes on his tablet. When asked for his input, he expressed appropriate concern and sympathy. Perhaps these failures are connected to solar flare activity, he suggested helpfully. Human scientists have noticed increased stellar radiation in several sectors. It might be interfering with electronic systems. The council members seized on this explanation gratefully. It made sense that primitive human equipment would be the first to detect such phenomena. They ordered their scientists to investigate solar activity immediately. While the aliens looked for solar explanations, Oh Sung-jin knew the real truth. Human specialists had been quietly embedded in every major galactic system. Dr. Kang Eunbi's xenobiology research had solved critical problems in alien ecosystem management. Human logistics coordinators had optimized supply chains that other species thought were running automatically. Human mediators had been preventing small disputes from escalating into larger conflicts through careful diplomatic work that nobody noticed. On the Drutak homeworld, Bae Won-sik completed the evacuation of the last secret human research facility. The Drutak had allowed humans to study their crystal formations, thinking human science was too basic to matter. They never realized that human researchers had been using those crystals to develop revolutionary new technologies. All personnel are clear, Bae reported to his superiors. We have successfully extracted 17 years of research data. The new crystal matrix computers are ready for testing in the hidden colonies. The technology that humans were taking with them was far beyond what they had ever revealed to the Council. While pretending to struggle with basic fusion drives, human scientists had been developing exotic matter propulsion. While presenting crude terraforming techniques, they had been perfecting reality manipulation technology learned from studying alien worlds. As Oh Sung-jin prepared to leave the embassy for the final time, he received reports from across human space. The evacuation was nearly complete. Hundreds of hidden colonies were now operational in star systems that other species had never discovered. Human technology, freed from the need to appear primitive, was advancing at an incredible rate. The final message he would deliver to the Council was already prepared. It was polite, professional, and completely devastating in its simplicity. Humanity was thanking the Council for the opportunity to participate in galactic civilization, but they had decided to pursue independent development. No accusations, no demands, no threats. Just a goodbye. He looked around the empty embassy office one last time. The other species had treated this place like a daycare center for primitive children. They had no idea that those children had been secretly running half the galaxy while pretending to play with simple toys. Oh Sung-jin picked up his communication device and sent a final coded message to the human fleet. Phase 7 complete. All assets extracted. Ready for final departure. Tomorrow he would attend his last council meeting. He would deliver humanity's farewell message with the same polite smile that humans had worn throughout their membership. And then he would leave, taking with him the last official human presence in galactic civilization. The Council would spend years trying to understand what went wrong. They would never realize that their biggest mistake was not recognizing who had been keeping their civilization running. 1 year had passed since humans began their silent departure, and the galaxy was falling apart. What had started as small technical problems had grown into a crisis that threatened the survival of entire civilizations. The mighty Galactic Council, which had ruled space for thousands of years, was crumbling like an old building in an earthquake. Lim Jae-sung stood on the bridge of the human starship New Seoul, watching through the view screen as his fleet moved through a star system that no alien species had ever seen. Around them, dozens of human ships traveled in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with technology that looked nothing like the crude vessels humans had shown to the Council. "Admiral, we are receiving reports from our intelligence networks," his communications officer announced. "The Vorthak Collective is experiencing civil war. Their government has collapsed." Lim nodded grimly. He had expected this news, but it still felt strange to hear it. The proud, snake-like aliens who had mocked human technology were now fighting each other over dwindling resources. Their industrial systems had failed so completely that they could not produce enough food to feed their population. On the planet, New Geneva, hidden deep in uncharted space, Han Mi-young reviewed the daily reports from across the galaxy. As the leader of humanity's secret capital world, she coordinated the activities of over 300 human colonies that the other species had never known existed. "The situation is worse than we predicted," her aide, Dr. Park Ji-min, reported. "The Drutak homeworld is experiencing environmental collapse. Without human-maintained atmospheric processors, their artificial climate is breaking down." Han Mi-young studied the data on her screen. The Drutak had always been proud of their ability to live on worlds that other species could not survive. They never realized that human engineers had been quietly maintaining the life support systems that made those worlds habitable. Now, with the humans gone, those systems were failing one by one. "What about the Zephyrians?" she asked. "Their civilization is fragmenting," Dr. Park replied. "The crystal cities that took them centuries to build are collapsing faster than they can repair them. They are abandoning entire worlds and retreating to their oldest strongholds. The crystalline aliens had built their entire society around perfect mathematical harmonies. When human mathematicians disappeared, taking with them the calculations that kept those harmonies stable, the Zephyrian civilization began to literally fall apart. Meanwhile, in what remained of the Galactic Council, desperate aliens were trying to understand what had gone wrong. The council chamber, once filled with proud representatives from 12 species, now held only 7. 3 civilizations had collapsed completely, and 2 others had withdrawn to deal with internal crises. Esalek, the Vorthak Prime Minister, was a shadow of his former self. His scales had turned gray with stress, and his movements were slow and tired. "We have confirmed the worst," he announced to the remaining council members. "The humans are gone, completely gone." "What do you mean, gone?" demanded Stone That Counts, the Drutak representative. His rocky body showed cracks that had not been there a year ago, signs of the stress his species was experiencing. "We sent scout ships to every known human colony," Salek explained. "The settlements are empty, not destroyed, not abandoned, in panic. Empty, as if the humans simply packed everything up and left." Current of Wisdom, the flux energy being, pulsed with confused patterns of light. "But why? We gave them no reason to leave. They were granted membership in the council. They had trading rights, mining permits, research opportunities." What the council members did not understand was that humans had never needed their permission for anything. While pretending to be grateful for small favors, humans had been building an independent civilization that was larger and more advanced than anything the council had ever imagined. Shin Dong-hyuk, one of the human scientists who had worked on the Secret Exodus project, was now leading research on a space station orbiting New Geneva. His team was analyzing data that humans had collected during their time in council space. Information about alien weaknesses, technologies, and internal politics that the aliens had carelessly shared with their primitive partners. The intelligence reports are remarkable, he told Han Mi-young during their weekly meeting. We know more about these species than they know about themselves. Their military capabilities, economic structures, political divisions, everything. Have they attempted to locate us? Han Mi-young asked. They are trying, but they lack the mathematical knowledge to navigate the hyperspace routes we discovered. Our exploration teams found 17 different pathways to distant star clusters. The aliens are still using the basic navigation methods we taught them years ago. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. Humans had not just been members of galactic civilization, they had been its secret foundation. Human logistics experts had optimized supply chains across hundreds of worlds. Human engineers had maintained critical infrastructure that other species thought was automatic. Human diplomats had prevented countless small disputes from becoming major wars. When humans disappeared, they took with them the institutional knowledge that held the galaxy together. Worse, they had been deliberately modest about their capabilities. The fusion drives they demonstrated were primitive compared to their real propulsion technology. The terraforming techniques they shared were crude versions of their actual world-building abilities. The few remaining council members were beginning to understand the scope of their mistake. Reports from their intelligence services painted a picture that terrified them. Humans had not been the weak junior partners they appeared to be. They had been the most advanced civilization in known space, carefully hiding their true capabilities while studying everyone else. We need to find them, Current of Wisdom declared, his energy form flickering with desperate intensity. We need to negotiate, offer them better terms, equal status, anything they want. But finding humans was proving impossible. The species that had seemed so limited in their exploration had actually been mapping the galaxy for decades. They had discovered star systems, hyperspace routes, and resources that no other civilization knew existed. Now they were gone, hidden somewhere in the vast emptiness of space. The final blow came when the Council's own computer systems began failing. The aliens discovered that human programmers had been maintaining critical software for years. Without them, even basic functions like communication between worlds and resource allocation were breaking down. As Han Mi-young looked out at the thriving human colonies surrounding New Geneva, she felt a mixture of sadness and pride. Humanity had tried to work within the galactic community, offering friendship and cooperation. Instead, they had been treated like children who needed guidance and protection. Now the galaxy was learning the price of that arrogance. The species that had dismissed humans as primitive were discovering that they could not survive without them. 5 years had passed since humanity vanished from known space, and the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. Where once stood the mighty Galactic Council with 12 proud civilizations, now only 4 species remained in any position to govern themselves. The others had either collapsed completely or retreated to their home systems, struggling to survive with failing technology and broken societies. The emergency meeting was held on Nexus Station, the only neutral location that still had working life support systems. The station itself was falling apart, with several sections sealed off due to atmospheric leaks that nobody knew how to fix. The Vorthak, Drutak, Flux, and Hegemony representatives sat in what used to be the Great Council chamber, but the room felt empty and cold with so few occupants. Salek, now the desperate leader of what remained a Vorthak civilization, spoke first. His once proud scales had turned pale, and his movements were slow with exhaustion. We cannot continue like this. Our people are dying. Our worlds are becoming uninhabitable. We need the humans back. stone that counts, representing the few surviving. Drutak colonies made a grinding sound of agreement. The Drutak Collective has lost 70% of our territory. Our industrial base has collapsed. We are reduced to mining with primitive tools. Current of Wisdom pulsed weakly, his energy form barely maintaining cohesion. The Flux Confederation exists in name only. Most of our power networks have failed. We are using emergency reserves that will last perhaps 6 more months. The hegemony representative, Mandible of Victory, clicked his arms in a rhythm that indicated deep frustration. Our military fleet is grounded. Ships that once numbered in the thousands are now down to dozens. We cannot even patrol our own borders, as the aliens discussed their desperate situation. Something impossible happened. The station's communication system, which had been barely functional for months, suddenly came alive with a clear signal. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber, the figure of a human man in a simple dark uniform. "Greetings," the human said, his voice calm and respectful. "I am Yu Junho, ambassador of the Independent Human Federation. We have been monitoring your situation and wish to offer assistance." The alien representatives stared in shock. After 5 years of complete silence, the humans had simply appeared as if from nowhere. Salek was the first to recover his voice. You still exist? We thought, where have you been?" "Humanity has been developing independently, as we informed. The council we intended to do," Yu Junho replied. "We have established our own civilization in regions of space that were previously unexplored. We have thrived." Current of Wisdom flickered with desperate hope. "Can you help us? Our civilizations are dying. We need your knowledge, your technology, your assistance." The human ambassador nodded slowly. "We are aware of your difficulties. We are prepared to offer aid, but under new conditions. The old council structure was inadequate for our needs." Through the view screen behind the ambassador, the aliens could see something that made their hearts sink with awe and fear. A massive fleet of human ships hung in space around the station, vessels that looked nothing like the crude technology humans had once displayed. These ships were works of art and engineering that surpassed anything the former council species had ever built. Song Hyerin, admiral of the Human Revelation Fleet, stood beside the ambassador. Her uniform bore symbols that none of the aliens recognized, insignia of a civilization that had grown beyond their understanding. The Independent Human Federation now spans over 800 worlds across 47 star systems, she announced. Our population exceeds 50 billion. Our technology has advanced beyond what we previously shared with the galactic community. The aliens processed this information with growing amazement and dread. In 5 years, humanity had not just survived. They had built an empire that dwarfed anything the old council had achieved. While the alien civilizations were collapsing, humans had been thriving in ways that seemed impossible. Mandible of Victory clicked his mandibles nervously. What do you want from us?" Go Min Woo, the Prime Minister of Independent Human Space, appeared in the hologram beside the ambassador. His expression was kind but firm. "We want partnership, not domination. Equality, not superiority. Cooperation, not servitude." "But first," Ambassador Yu continued, "you must understand what went wrong with the old system. The Galactic Council failed because it was built on the assumption that some species were naturally superior to others. That assumption was false. The alien representatives listened in stunned silence as the humans explained what had really happened during their membership in the council. Every dismissive comment, every technological slight, every limitation placed on human expansion had been carefully noted and remembered. "We never left in anger," Go Min-woo explained. "We left because we had outgrown a system that could not recognize our potential. While you were busy proving your superiority, we were busy becoming superior." The scope of human achievement was staggering. They had solved faster-than-light communication, achieved true artificial intelligence, developed reality manipulation technology, and discovered the secrets of consciousness transfer. The civilization that the Council had treated as primitive children had become the most advanced society in known space. But perhaps most remarkably, humanity was offering to share their achievements. "We propose a new Galactic Federation, Ambassador," you announced. "One based on mutual respect and equal representation. One where no species is considered primitive or advanced, but where all are valued for their unique contributions." Han Mi-young, watching from New Geneva, smiled as she observed the negotiations through secure channels. Standing on the observation deck of humanity's greatest city, she looked out at a civilization that spanned dozens of worlds. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had transcended it through innovation. The final terms were simple and fair. The surviving alien civilizations could join the new federation as equal partners. Humanity would share their technology and knowledge freely, helping to rebuild what had been lost. In return, the other species would contribute their own unique abilities and perspectives to the collective good. As the negotiations concluded, Salek asked the question that had haunted him for 5 years. Why? Why help us after how we treated you? Ambassador Yu smiled with genuine warmth. Because that is what civilized beings do. They help each other grow, rather than holding each other back. The old Galactic Council had tried to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, humanity had simply found its own place, and it was larger than anyone had ever imagined. They had departed silently when treated as children and returned as adults ready to lead by example rather than force. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating the quiet species from Earth.